Hello YouTube, this is MTGeezers, and we are going crazy with uploads at the moment because all of the Fate Reforged cards have just been spoiled. So this is the third video in our complete set review, and this time we're going over the black cards. So we're going to start off having a quick look now at Alicia's Vanguard. So for 4 mana you're getting a 3-3 with dash for 3. This card's alright, it's quite versatile. Obviously with the dash you can play it as the 3-3 with haste and then sacrifice it or return it to your hand, sorry, or it's just a 4 for a 3-3, which is pretty good. It'll be alright in sealed. Won't see play in standard, but definitely quite good in sealed and in draft and limited formats. Next we've got Ancestral Vengeance, which is 2 black for an enchant creature. When it enters battlefield you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. An enchanted creature gets -1/-1. This card is actually really sweet, because if they had a 6/6 and you had a 5/5, or even a 4/4, their 6/6 is now a 5/5, and your 4/4 would now be a 5/5. So you can trade off with that, even though they had 2 power difference between them, and it will work well in the token strategies with lots of 1/1s and stuff like that. It's a really sweet card, and I think it will do quite well on the pre-release weekend. Next we've got Archfiend of Depravity. So for 5 mana you're getting a 5/4 flyer, which on its own would be absolutely amazing, to be honest, in sealed, and it's pretty good in standard, because at the beginning of each opponent's end step they choose up to 2 creatures and sacrifice the rest. This I can see going in quite a lot of sideboards in standard decks. Them having to sacrifice all of their creatures they control except 2 is pretty good. Gets around hexproof and it will pwn the token strategies. And otherwise it's going to be pretty good in limited and sealed as well. Definitely a great finisher for black. Only 5 mana for a 5/4 flyer. Next we've got Battle Brawler, 2 for a 2/2, and as long as you control a red or white permanent it gets +1/+0 and has first strike. So if you are playing Mardu, or if you are playing any colours with any clan with black or white in it, or black and red, then you're getting a 3/2 with first strike for 2, which is absolute value in pretty much any format. So I'm really liking this card. It will see a lot of play in most formats. Brutal Horde Chief is the first mythic for black. It's 4 mana for a 3/3. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And if you pay 5 mana, creature opponents control block this turn if able, and you choose how they block. This is a really sweet card for the token strategies. Obviously it is made around Mardu tokens, but you go swing with, let's say, 5 of your tokens, you're now 10 life points up if you were drawing on life. And you can force your opponent's creatures to block and choose how they block. So you can get your little 1/1 Death Toucher blocked by their massive threat, and you don't have to worry about that anymore because they've just traded off nicely. Next we've got Crux of Fate, which is choose 1, destroy all dragon creatures or destroy all non-dragon creatures. I can see a lot of play for this on the pre-release weekend. If you open it, definitely play it. Really sweet board wipe, especially if you've got a dragon down or 2. And otherwise, I think it might see a bit of play in standard and definitely EDH. In EDH, this thing is absolutely awesome. You could build a really sweet dragon deck around that card. Dark Deal is 3 mana. Each player discards all the cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards -1. I think this is an alright card. If you've got, let's say, 1 card or 2 cards in hand, your opponent's got a massive hand of all threats, it can get rid of their threats and draw them into rubbish. Otherwise, I don't know, I mean, you're both drawing cards, I guess it's alright. Maybe playable, maybe not. Diplomacy of the Wastes is 3 mana. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. If you control a warrior, that player loses 2 life. So this card's a little bit like Thoughtseize. It does the same kind of thing. However, it costs 2 mana more, which obviously makes it much worse. However, instead of you losing 2 life, if you control a warrior, they lose 2 life. So I think it's alright. Play in standard? Maybe, if someone builds a Waste Knot deck finally. I mean, Waste Knot seems to be a card that could be starting to get playable now. But otherwise, I don't know how much play that will see. Dowsing Gloom is 3 mana, instant speed. It deals 2 damage to target creature and you gain 2 life. A Freaker's Cure that costs 1 more to cast. It's alright. Instant speed. Will be played in sealed? Yes. Will it be played in standard? No. Fearsome Awakening is 5 mana. Sorcery speed. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if it's dragon, put 2 1/1s on it. Now I love this card. You can go out and get one of your 6-cost dragon 4/4 flyers. They kill it. Okay, they've answered that. Then you get it back, and it's now a 6/6 flying dragon instead. That's absolutely bonkers, and I really like that. That's a great card. If you open any of these in your pre-release weekend or in a draft or whatever, make sure you take them. They're really solid. Ghastly Conscription is a card I was not too sure about at first, and then I realised some huge potential for it in Black-Blue Control, because you're getting to exile all cards from their graveyard, and in Black-Blue Control you're countering a lot of their cards, killing and stuff like that, and then you get to manifest all of those cards. And when I first saw this, I thought, oh yeah, it's rubbish because they die to Bile-Blight, but actually they don't, because these creatures don't have a name. So only one of these will die to a Bile-Blight. You'd have to drown in sorrow or have a board wipe, etc. But I really like this as a finisher for blue-black control. I think it's quite a powerful card, and definitely in limited and sealed. Obviously, it's absolutely bonkers, really good fun. Grave Strength is 2 mana, choose target creature, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each creature card in your graveyard. Now, this card is one of those cards, it's a bit of a gamble. If the top 3 of your cards, there are 0 creatures, then you've just, like, done nothing. However, if they're all creatures, then you're getting 3 1/1s. It's sorcery speed, so it's also not going to be used as a combat trick. It'll have to be done before you declare attackers. But it's alright. I think it might work in some decks for draft and sealed. This is one of my favourite cards from the set, actually. Gurmag Angler, or Angler, or I don't know. 7 mana for a 5/5 with Delve. So I really, really like this card, because obviously in sealed format, 7 mana for 5/5 is actually, it's alright in sealed. And being able to play this, theoretically, obviously, for just 1 mana, that's absolutely bonkers. You can probably get this down turn 4 if you've had a good curve and if they've had a few responses. And that's going to be really crazy getting a 5/5 down turn 4 in sealed formats. Really, really like that card. Hooded Assassin is a 3-drop 1/2. When it enters battlefield, you can either put a counter on it to make it a 2/3, or destroy a creature that was dealt damage this turn. Nice versatile card, will see a lot of play over your pre-release weekend and in draft and sealed formats. Marduk Shadow Spear is 1 for a 1/1, and whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life, and it's got Dash. I think this card really showcases how good Dash is going to be. Basically, it's a 2/2 for 1, because you're hitting them for 2 each turn, they're losing a life. And it's got Dash, so you can flash it in, swing at them, they lose 2, and then it goes back to your hand. And that's going to be quite powerful early game and late game, so I really like that card. Marduk Strike Leader is 3 for a 3/2. Whenever it attacks, you get a 2/1 black warrior onto the battlefield, and it's got Dash as well. Dash is starting to look like a really sweet mechanic, and this card is absolutely bonkers. I can see play for it in the standard mono black aggro decks, and definitely in sealed and draft. You're swinging, you're paying 4, you're swinging at them for 3, plus then you're getting a 2/1, and that 2/1 will stay on the battlefield, so the Dash Leader will return, and that 2/1 stays, and then next turn you can do it again and again and again. It's going to get really out of control really quite quickly. Merciless Executioner is 3 for a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. Really, really good late game, surprisingly, if they've got down one big threat and you've got lots of little threats, because you can sack something small you don't care about and they have to sack their big dude. Now we've got the Dragon for black, Nauseous Dragon, which is 6 for a 4/4 flyer, and when it dies, you may destroy a creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. The when it dies ability is okay. I mean, converted mana cost 3 or less. It's an abrupt decay, but you have to target a creature, obviously, so it's not as good. But it's a solid 4/4 flyer for 6, which is really sweet. Orc Sure Shot is 4 for a 4/2. Whenever another creature enters battlefield under control, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1. It's obviously kind of like a Doomwake Giant, however not quite as good because Doomwake Giant is all creatures. But it's a pretty good card. If there's a lot of tokens that you're getting down in a token strategy, this could be a really powerful card. Palace Siege is 5 mana, and when it enters battlefield, choose Khans or Dragons. Khans, at the beginning of your upkeep, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's going to be pretty cool. I can see a bit of play for that in Standard and Sealed, obviously that's crazy. And Dragons, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So that I can see more play for in EDH, because each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. But obviously it's quite crazy in Draft and Sealed formats as well. Standard, it's a possibility. Some of the sieges might be played in Standard. We'll just have to wait and see. Quasi, I don't know how you say it. High Priest is 1 for a 0/2, and if you pay 2 and sack another creature, you can manifest the top card of your library. So 1 mana for a 0/2, it's okay, but then this ability is actually really sweet. You can go sacrifice one of your 1/1 tokens or whatever for 2 mana, and manifest it, and then if it is a creature, obviously you can turn it up, and there's a bit of card advantage for you. Reach of Shadows is 5 mana, instant speed, destroy target creature that's 1 or more colours. Really, really sweet removal for the sealed formats. Obviously not going to be played in Standard, but really, really sweet for pre-release weekend. Shibsig Host is 5 mana for a 2/6, and when it enters the battlefield, each player puts top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. it's an alright card. You know, I don't know. Milling 3 cards is relevant in draft, surprisingly, and in sealed, because that's almost a tenth of their library gone straight away. But you know, we'll have to wait and see how much play this one will get in the weekend of the pre-release. Sibsig Mukdraggers is 9 mana for 3/6 with Delve, and when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Obviously, it's going to be really good if you can play it early. Obviously, it's going to be really good if you can play it late. So I think it's actually an alright card, because you can potentially get a 3/6 out for 1 black mana, which is great, obviously. It's not going to be happening turn 1, because you won't have enough fuel in your graveyard. But then after you've done that, you can return a creature card from the graveyard to your hand, which could be another big threat that they've answered, and you can return it and go threaten them again with it and possibly win the game. So that's a quite sweet card. Soul Flare is 6 for a 4/4 with Delve, and if a creature card with flying was exiled with its ability, it has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. So basically, if a card with an ability was exiled with this one's Delve ability, it has that ability. So let's just take a minute and sink this information in. That is insane. You could build some sweet standard decks around this and get your graveyard full of Reach, Hexproof, Death Touch, and Double Strike creatures, exile them all, and you've got a 4/4 with all those abilities. Obviously, it can only have the most of 4 of those abilities, because you can only delve 4 of the most, but it's a really sweet card. And even in the pre-release, when you're probably not going to be able to exile that much stuff for it, it's a great 4/4 with, it's going to have at least probably 1 of those abilities for 6. So I really like it. Sultai Missionary is 2 for a 1/1, and when it dies, you manifest the top card of your library. It's an alright creature. I can see play for this in the weekend. Sultai Rune Mark is 3, enchant creature gets +2/+2, and it has Death Touch if you control a green or blue permanent. Pretty good. Death Touch is really, really powerful in sealed formats, so I can see a lot of play for this. I would play probably 1 or 2 of these if I opened them. I wouldn't go for a play set, but definitely 1 or 2. Tasuga, the Golden Fang is 6 mana for a 4/5 with Delve, and if you pay 4, you can put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. I don't know, might be playable in standard, definitely playable in sealed, might be playable in standard. Tasuga's Cruelty is 6 mana with Delve, and each opponent discards 2 cards. It's really sweet because obviously it only targets your opponent, and if they've got 2 last cards in their hand and you want to go in for that final attack but you think they might have an answer or something like that, really, really sweet. You can play it for potentially 1 black mana, really good card, and obviously every set's got to have one of these. It's a 1/1 Death Toucher for 1 mana, and it's a reprint of one of my favourite cards of all time, Typhoid Rats. And that wraps up this episode. So thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please take a quick moment to just crush that subscribe button. All your support really helps. Please share, like, everything on this video. Do whatever you can. I don't know what you're watching this on, whether it will be Twitch or YouTube or whatever. But do whatever you do. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.